Hello and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Mignot, CEO of the Cultural Communications Agency, D Flash. Each episode, I bring a different business leader who's doing some great game-changing work. And I'm super excited to have Lonn Shulkin, who's the CEO of BAM Strategy, and he's coming in from Canada. So we're going to have a great conversation about how he got his start, what he's up to now, and where he's going in the future. Take a listen. Hey, Lonn.
Hey, Laura, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Delighted to have you join. So I'm sure if you've heard the podcast, you know what the first question is going to be. It's always the same, always fascinated by the answer. 200 odd episodes later, I'm still always fascinated by the answers folks come up with. So, Lonn, what was your first job?
I listened to a bunch of your podcasts and I also love the answers. And my first job was actually working in my father's warehouse. So my dad, he was the president of a tool manufacturing company. So like screwdrivers and levels and hammers. And one summer, after having gone to summer camp for many years of my life, I actually decided to stay home in the city and work in my father's warehouse. And that was quite the experience. We
Do
learned,
tell.
yeah. So first of all, I actually started working on the night shift for some odd reason,
Okay.
and so I wasn't treated very special, even though I was the president's son, and learned how to do everything from driving the little trucks around the warehouse and picking tools to be packaged to be sent to customers. And he would sell tools to companies like Home Depot and Lowe's, and just got to understand that manufacturing life, which I had never been exposed to. So it was really hard work, I must say, is working in a warehouse where you're doing a lot of manual labor and a lot of repetitive tasks, I'd say. So there's times where I was working on putting screwdrivers in a package, for instance, and you do that for 8 hours straight. It's really hard work, and I have a lot more respect for everyone who does that than I would have if I had not tried that.
Yeah, that's why it's always fascinating hearing what folks decide to pick as a job they want to talk about as their first job. And it always is something where it leaves this indelible mark on you in terms of like hard work, seeing other perspectives, getting a chance to kind of see from the ground up how things come to be. And it comes in super handy for the rest of your career.
100%. I always tell the story of, I guess, my biggest lesson from that time was really actually observing my father interacting with people in the actual warehouse and how he treated people. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that shaped my career is understanding that no matter what your level is, no matter how much money you make, no matter what kind of person you are, seeing my dad, talk about sports and joke around with someone who is working in the warehouse, or just packing tools into a package, was, I guess, eye-opening for me at a young age of just how to treat people and how to get people's respect and give people respect. And so I think that really shaped even where we are today at BAM, but also a lot of other parts of my career and my life.
Awesome. So we go from doing the overnight shifts to now being CEO. What was that career journey like? I'm sure there's lots of good twists and turns in there.
There's a few. I actually, like a lot of, I'll say, young men coming out of university, decided I wanted to work in sports, and so I think that's a pretty cliche thing for guys to want to do. But I decided I would call every sports team in the US to try and get an internship. And I was turned down many, many times, actually. But I got lucky enough to actually land an internship with the New York Islanders that was unpaid. So I called them and they said, sure, if you want to come here and not be paid, you're welcome to. And so again,
Wow.
yeah, so this was, I guess when was it? 1999, I think. No, it was earlier. Yeah, around then. So late 90s. The Islanders were not a great team at the time. And I moved to New York, and I had some friends from Michigan, and I decided, even though I'm going for an unpaid internship, I'm going to commit to some really expensive rent and commit to 12 months in Manhattan, and figure it out from there. So I packed up and came to New York, and actually ended up working for the Islanders just for that
Oh,
summer.
wow.
So sorry, I didn't end up getting a job with them. I was an intern there. I didn't see that going anywhere, in all honesty. It was actually really eye-opening, because as glamorous as sports seem, it was pretty evident that it wasn't the best culture and work environment at the time, and people actually didn't love their job. And so, even though you're there in what sounds like a dream job, the
It
company,
sucks.
yeah, it sucked. It really wasn't great, and that's when I started looking around, and that was my first taste of digital marketing, which is what I'm in today. And that I landed in an upstart digital marketing agency called Beyond Interactive, which is one of the first, I'd say, big digital agencies out there. It was eventually acquired by Gray Advertising, which is part of WPP. And I was in a real startup environment, and this is during the dot-com boom. So we're having all those parties and enjoying the glory of the dot-com boom until the dot-com bust. And remember the day that the company had to lay off hundreds of people, and I was luckily not one of those, but just the pain around seeing all your friends go. And I guess, again, another really great learning lesson of how to manage through that, even though I wasn't a manager at the time. Just observing how the company dealt with that, and I think did a really good job at placing people and trying to help them into their next career and finding jobs for them in the Gray network. I remember a good friend of mine ended up getting a job inside the Gray network that he had for a long time. And so that was a great experience. And then eventually I decided that I was going to do my MBA. And so I was in New York, living downtown actually during 9/11. And that was sort of the prompt, as many, I think, had life-changing events during that moment. But that was the prompt for me to say, okay, time to move on. And I ended up coming back to Canada and went to do my MBA in London, Ontario, at the Richard Ivey School of Business. And that sort of paved the path for me to end up in Toronto, end up working for Bell Canada, and then I worked for an employee loyalty company called Rito Recognition. And at that company, really started learning about how companies should be treating employees, because that's what we were selling, is the really solutions for treating employees well. And eventually decided that I wanted to get into really running my own business, and connected with the founder of BAM, Chris Emergy, who we figured out how I could join him, and the rest is history. Here I am.
You've been at BAM for quite some time, and in our industry, folks bounce from agency to agency to agency, like snapping your fingers. What makes you stay?
I guess, I mean, first of all, I came in. One of the things I was looking for was to really be an owner of a company. So when I was leaving Rito, that's one of the things that was really important to me, and so that's obviously one of the reasons I'm still here, is that I'm one of the owners of the company. So that's obviously not the main reason for staying. There's certainly lots of reasons I love it here. I think first, the culture Chris set out to build originally was that one that really came from his heart, and then I think our styles really meshed well, because we have this really deep, genuine focus on caring for people. And that has made it, after 11 years now, a lot of fun every day. There have been challenges, obviously, but in general, I think for me, it fulfills me on just having great relationships and being able to show that care for people and building friendships, whether with employees or our customers or partners, etc. So that's I guess what keeps driving me on a daily basis.
Awesome. So we all had a very crazy year last year. How did you all adapt in the land of COVID? And one day everything's normal, the next day the whole world shuts down.
Yeah, this has been interesting 18 months, right?
Yeah,
I think every person can
understatement.
say, yeah, exactly. So I think every person can say they've had some sort of a mental health issue or dealt with one. Every person has probably had a career issue and a family issue. What a crazy 18 months we've had. BAM itself, I think, lucky or good. We were certainly very fortunate in that uh, we had been growing quite well right before COVID, and the kinds of clients we had really, I wouldn't say they're COVID proof. I think they had tremendous challenges. Um, but their product demand did not get hugely hit on in most cases. I'm sure any client who's going to listen to this is going to disagree with me. So we unlike several ad agencies did not see major budget cuts, and we did not see
Wow.
yeah. So I think we were just very fortunate in the rise of e-commerce, the dependence on the web and digital, and we were in the right place for that with growing strong clients that allowed us to really weather that. So that set us up really well and very fortunately, and I'm very thankful that we were in that position. The second thing is that we for many years have invested a ton in culture, and I think a lot of people say people are important. We really have put things like leadership programs and overinvested possibly in the amount of HR people we have. And like I said earlier, this genuine care piece that I think we've done a good job, not just living from a leadership standpoint, but truly hiring people who care and who fit our culture, uh, helped us do actually tremendously well during the pandemic, during lockdowns and things of that nature. And in Canada, where most of our people are, less now since COVID because we've been able to hire anywhere, but in Canada, the lockdowns were much more extreme also and longer lasting. And so, we depended on each other to support each other. And there were incredible moments that we saw happening on a daily basis, whether it was teams meeting just to check on each other. At first, teams were meeting twice a day, like beginning and end, to check in with each other and make sure people were okay. There were sing-alongs happening, literally like people jamming on Zoom, and um, and we started doing things like going in person and dropping packages at people's houses. So we would go and just, I mean, there's a ton of employees I haven't met in person, and so those were opportunities to, I guess, ring a doorbell. We'd keep our distance, but they would come to the door, and at least we could wave and give them something and say hello and try and make that human connection. And so, again, not without its struggles for sure, but I think we weathered it and have continued to weather it really well. Our office is actually not opened. We're opening, optionally opening for next week, actually.
Mhm. Wow. I mean, it's cool to see because like so many companies were just like, what do we do? And it was like, well, first of all, is your culture okay? Because if your culture is okay, then obviously this is dramatic, but that would be the way to kind of put one foot in front of the other and help guide, because it's about the people at the end of the day. And if they feel that they're supported and there's a high degree of empathy coming from leadership, then you'll find your way.
I mean, I could not agree more. I think my team gets annoyed at me because I talk so much more about culture than about what we do. But after being in business, I grew up in a business family, witnessing so much on the formal business side, doing my business degree and learning all the different models and formalities. And then ultimately I'm coming out on, I guess, mid-career or at a point in my career where so much, I mean, much more than 50%, I won't give an exact number, is just how we treat people and how we motivate people through actually caring about them. And when you do that, and when you actually can surround yourself with other people who believe in that, it's magical, absolutely amazing what can happen.
It, but I think, you know, and you know, part of the reason I was really psyched to have you is because, like, you know, I think they also need to see more leaders who look like you who say this. Because, you know, it's all well and good that I say it. It's all well to say more women leaders say it, but when we have more male leaders who talk about culture and talk about caring and talk about empathy, that's when people start paying attention. Because I think that, you know, that's it's just the nature of our industry. And so the more honest leaders like you can be like, no, this is how we have to do this. Otherwise, we don't have a future as a business. Is so key,
Uh,
especially at this moment.
100%. We're challenging ourselves on diversity and inclusion and figuring out exactly what our approach is, because our discussion in the last week has been that we get it from a cultural standpoint, but how do we actually formalize those things? And I think there's a lot of learning that we need to do as far as figuring out, like, what does that look like? How do you actually implement those practices versus, so I'd say if you came in here and audited our diversity practices, our inclusion practices, equality practices, I think we do really well on the audit. But I don't think that's enough. I think leaders need to continue to figure out, like, how do they actually, treat it like any other process that they would do. Like, we build a website, we have a way of doing that. And make sure some of those soft practices, those caring practices, actually become hard processes and things that can be sustainable and aren't just sort of flavor of the moment. And that's a really key, important focus for us.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, well, the first step in all this, what I would say, folks, is to listen to everyone and hear what they
Yeah,
actually
I
have to
mean,
say, and understand that it's this is not going to be solved in a day. This is not going to solve with being confrontational. It's meeting people where they are, and then having honest conversations about it, because the world's changed, and as a result of that, it requires a different level of empathy and caring and understanding. But if you're starting at zero, it's going to be a lot harder than if you're already at like a 50. And it sounds like you guys are above 50.
and I had just done an interview that I posted, and I basically I either wrote it there or somewhere else, but essentially I wrote that people are going to be successful, or companies are going to be successful, when they realize that the people are more important than the company. And I think that's probably the biggest change, is that when someone tells me that they're going through something in their life, I really would rather them put that item before they put our company. I really truly believe that each person's life journey experience is way more important than anything we're doing here at BAM. And it's just, again, it's making sure that we are aligned with everyone else in the company, that they feel that way. And I mean, I'm still amazed that we've achieved this culture, or that we are achieving. I don't think it's over. So that we're at this place where I think people who don't fit really stick out like a sore thumb. And it just becomes very evident that it's not going to work, because they don't necessarily have that same view of putting people first.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to someone recently, and I was explaining to them how, my agency came to be, and I was like, well, one of the things we did was I just like created something that I wanted to be a part of, and I wanted people to feel good about it. And what was shocking to us was that, like, when we did that, people were like, can you do that for us? Because we have no idea how to even do this. And so it is this thing about, like, how do you actually build a culture? How do you build a culture that is inclusive and feels good? And it's one step at a time. and brick by brick.
For sure. It is not as easy as just putting a stamp on your door that says you include everyone.
Yeah, with a commitment to diversity, it's our core values. Yeah, of course. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. We go through mission, vision, practiced, and wrote down our 7 values, and it's on there.
It's on the
Actually, like
wall. Yeah.
we've abandoned a lot of that stuff. We came up, so we did a sort of introspection about 5 years back. A lot of our, I guess, agency practices were similar to how they are now, but the introspection, we kept hearing from people that we're a great place to work and we care about people. And then we went out to our clients and they said that the same thing, like, you guys just work for us, like you just care that we have a deadline and that you're going to get it done. And we kept hearing that concept of caring. And I think the aha moment for us is that we figured out that we could take that and actually help our customers, which in general are larger brands. That's just where more of our specialty or our niche is. So large companies, but we could actually help them understand that they can care for their consumer in the same way that we try and care for employees and clients and other people in our lives. And we came up with this concept called curiosity. You can see it all over our website and elsewhere. But this idea of being caring and curious about people, so that you talked about learning, right? And so how are we curious about people and doing that to actually drive business results? And we figured out that there's a lot of different things we can do, again, that are tangible, not just the touchy-feely, but the tangible side of it, where we can actually, even for a Pepsi product, for instance, is how do we actually connect with the customer and understand how a bag of chips plays a role in the customer's life, right? Or we'll work with baby formula company like Enfamil and figure out how can we help a mom through her journey, through her pregnancy journey, or after she has her baby, through all the different challenges that anyone who's had a child has witnessed. And if if the brand can be there for the customer and have this genuine care, just like we've talked about as far as building company culture, then the customer will start to buy from you because they'll trust you and they know that you're putting them first, not your product first.
Exactly. I mean, all this is, there is a reason to do this. There's also a good financial reason to do this. People will buy more widgets if they realize, if the people believe that the widgets are coming from a place of caring and not just, I'm an evil capitalist. Like, I always say, like, one of the most important things about inclusivity is that when you're inclusive, it means you include more people, that includes more dollars for you. It's not hard. It helps people figure it out along the way. So, looking back on, your kind of a career experience, what do you think it was a challenge that you faced? That you're like, there's no way I'm getting through this, and then you did.
I think joining BAM was a huge challenge. Obviously, there's been other probably more serious challenges, but from a pure business standpoint, coming in to a company that had a culture already and trying to put your imprint on it, for me, was a huge learning experience, challenge. Same lesson that I've talked about over and over, so I won't keep repeating it. But I think for me, that was definitely a stressful, dramatic time where you're trying to figure out people and people are trying to figure out you. And at the end of the day, you just have to, I guess, believe that what you believe in is right. Because you're not necessarily at the point where you have, your 50 supporters yet. And I think the satisfaction I would have now is looking back and saying, wow, there's followers now, or there's people, and I don't mean that in a egotistical way, but there's people who've bought into this concept, and there's people who love it as well as much as I love it. And so I think that's, for me, been incredibly satisfying.
Awesome. So speaking of satisfying, and this I'm very curious to see what your answer is going to be for this one is, what do you do for self-care?
COVID's changed a lot. I so I've always been very active. So exercise for me is very, very important. Um, my family in general is really important. So I've luckily ended up in I'm a suburb guy in the suburbs of Montreal, and luckily live about 5 minutes from my parents, and I live about 5 minutes from each of my brothers. I mean, I'm the youngest of three boys, so which comes with cousins and a bunch of other family members and friends all around us, and so for me, those two things are critical. So definitely was feeling a little bit of the pain during lockdowns and things of that nature when you're like, can I even go to my parents, you know? And so
Oh man, yeah.
I actually have three boys as well, and I would take my little boys to see my parents, like, we'd stay, 30 feet away, and they'd stand at their back door. um,
Aw.
and so that for me are two really important things. I meditate daily, actually, so that became a big part of my, I guess, self-care practice. I had meditated, I guess, historically on and off, but I got a lot more into it in the last year, and sort of I call it a superpower, actually. So I think
Hmm.
um, it's very difficult to explain, and I think people often go to meditation to solve like an immediate problem, but it's actually the long term effects of meditation that's really cool. Just that concept of being present, and so those three things for me are critically important, and I guess my part of my self care practices.
Well, they're key. I mean, similarly, I wasn't a big meditation person, had done it on and off for years. And, what I found, especially during COVID times, which was obviously insanely stressful, was to have a routine when you don't have a routine anymore. And so having the ability to sort of meditate first thing in the morning and know that that was the thing I was going to do before anything else just became super helpful in trying to navigate a very unusual world. And you guys were in Canada. Here in New York, our lockdown was like the movie I Am Legend in terms of like so it was quite the ghost town in a very odd and very weird and ominous ways. And so yeah, it was a very bizarre time. So totally get it. And yeah, all kinds of new exercises that I started taking up because I'm like, well, guess I'm
What
gonna
else
have to
do I
be
have to do?
outside. Not like I can produce events right now because can't go outside. So yeah, this bike is gonna be my new best friend. And so yeah,
And it was sort of a helpful time to be able to identify what you're thankful for, right? And that's, I think, the cool thing. Like we're about to open our office, and it's not going to be the experience that people are used to, that people who have been here were used to. But I think anyone who wants to come in is going to be so thankful for just being able to be here. The ping pong table may not be open, but that.
oh Lonn, no ping pong table, come on.
Yeah.
Oh
But yeah, so interesting, and just our change of the relative nature of what we appreciate. So
yeah, it's wow. Yeah, it's such a crazy time. But yeah, you know what, we're gonna make it all work. And I think that's the key about all of this is that folks can understand that the world's changed and we accept it. And those who are, and we're still all in this together. There is this sort of collective. There was a great article this week about what happened in New York and why folks stayed, and like how we sort of kind of had a sort of collective, like, we're gonna make it through. And I think globally we've had that kind of the same thing. Like we've all been through something unique, weird, woefully traumatic. And as a result of that, we're hopefully changed for the better. And hopefully, do more caring, we hope, fingers crossed, about the people who are around us. And thinking about all that, and the world we live in now and all the things we've done, and you working in the .com boom and being here during, on 9/11, what do you think you tell 25-year-old Lonn?
I mean, I guess again, same lesson, which is just, I guess, put people first, put people ahead of yourself, and I think you'll get a lot more out of life than if you don't do that. I think that's really the key, and figure out, and it takes effort to figure out how to do that, or or to figure out how you figure yourself out enough to do that genuinely. Um, and once you do that, I think all the relationships and everything you're sort of seeking will start to come to you, because people will feel great when they're around you, and when people feel great when they're around you, they want more of that. And so, I guess that would be my message to anyone, and definitely the 25-year-old me.
Awesome. So it's now almost October 2021. Where do you see BAM going in 2022? Like, offices are opening up back, or bringing down restrictions. Like, I saw friends who went to Montreal for poutine last weekend. So like, the world's opening back up.
Yeah,
Where do you see you guys in the next year?
I think hopefully more of the same in some ways. Hopefully a lot more seeing people. That would be great. We're starting to talk about like our holiday party, and
Ah,
we've had these great holiday parties, and I'm as a business owner, I'm like, I don't think I can like responsibly plan a big party in a hotel. But
right.
how do we see people in person? And it's, as you guys have in New York, and Montreal is even a little tougher from a weather standpoint, like the amazing park meetups and stuff we've been able to do in the summer and spring, and a little, it will continue into the fall for sure. But even today it was pretty chilly out, and I tried to eat lunch outside with a friend, and it poses different challenges. And so I think for us in the next 12 months is figuring out how do we get some human to human connection, because I'm not sure that's going to be in the office all the time, but I do think it's important. And so that's one of the big focuses. And the other one is that we have a much more spread out workforce than we used to, because we just stopped only hiring here, in all honesty. So we have 5 to 10 people in the New York area. We have 10 or so in the Toronto area. We have someone in Costa Rica. We have someone in Austin. We have someone in France. So there's people all over now. And I think we would have been concerned about this before, which is just how do we pull them in and include them and make them part of the culture. And I think hopefully that's going to come with them being able to fly and see us.
Does it come to may fly in to see you? Hopefully.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's going to be, I drove to Ottawa, which is, an hour or so away from here, an hour and a half away from here. And we just had coffee with people, just not to talk about work, but just to say hi and see people in person. And I think that's, for me, the focus, and obviously continuing to grow and do good work, but everyone's going to say that. So I think our focus is to continue to figure out how to do that with people. And I'm assuming we're going to get more people that aren't going to be in this office and aren't going to be here in Montreal.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, we started to get those calls about, can we do someone's holiday party for their event? And I'm like, well, options are heated tent, heated dome, so that in big space are probably the things you're going to be able to do, or company retreat somewhere warm outside. So there's also that.
I like it.
Hey, listen, I come with solutions, Lonn. I come with solutions. But yeah, I mean, we've hit that window now where folks are kind of in the in between. Like, we've opened, we've not opened, but we do want our employees to come back and see each other, because some folks have never met the colleagues they're talking to every single day. They have no idea how tall they are, or if they, like, do you have legs? I don't know. Are you a centaur or human? I don't know. So because you don't know, if I was sitting in these little Zoom squares. So it'll be interesting to see how it all kind of shakes out. And, we're honestly erring on the side of go somewhere else, or it's kind of what you said, like fly to different leadership flies and has little kind of pod parties with different constituencies. Um, because it'll be a little bit safer, just because at least here in the US, we
Yeah.
have some issues.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I try and tell people is that unfortunately, as much as we want this to be over and we think we're moving on, I just don't think it's over yet. And that doesn't mean I think there's going to be more COVID or not. We don't need to even get into that debate. I think the point is that think of how much has changed in the last 18 months, how much even our opinions are. 18 months ago or 12 months ago, I thought working from home was the greatest thing. And this month I've been in the office almost every week, every day, right? Because my opinion and my sentiment has changed. And so I think we need to leave a lot of space and a lot of flexibility for that. Probably forever. And maybe that's one of the ways the world has changed, is just we need to be more flexible and adaptable. But definitely, in the next 6 to 12 months, I think that's going to still be a theme, is that, people keep talking in sort of these absolutes, like work from home is going to be the thing of the future. I just don't know that we're there and can say that yet. I think we'll see. Let's be flexible now and support people and do what they need to make sure our company is successful.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. I think the whole thing is that everyone's constituency, or what you thought you'd be doing. Oh, isn't it awesome work from home? No, it's not. Like all has changed. I mean, also business travel. I mean, I spent the better part of 9 years on planes,
Yeah.
basically every other month, and now I'm like, wait, what? I can do this all from my desk and actually make more money. Okay, why do I need to fly all that time? Who am I going to fly for? Like, I know it'll be interesting to see how the airline industry responds, because business travel was a huge money driver, and like I don't think you're going to get back the your million-mile folks that have been sitting at home for the past year. Even the ones that they want to get out, Yeah, your view on things, but also folks' behavior has changed. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna shut off at 5. Like I can't sit for back-to-back Zoom calls all day long. So at 5, I'm closing my laptop.
Yeah.
So, and obviously mental health, the openness, the ability for folks to actually kind of say, listen, nope, can't do this, need to walk away for a little bit. And we've seen it recently with a couple of our clients, and and vendors, and it's like, yeah, listen, put yourself first, take care of yourself. We are not curing cancer here. We want folks to be well. And I think that's one of the probably the best things that's come out of this, is the ability for folks to at least be more honest and open to the degree that they feel comfortable with this. And for employers to be like, we get it. And healthy employees means not just physical, but your mental health.
For sure. And I think, you said it earlier, but just this, the fortunate or unfortunate, I think long-term fortunate is that I think a big shift is that the leaders themselves faced a lot of the same problems, being trapped in their homes, having mental health challenges, and they, again, fortunately or unfortunately, they are now much more empathetic to potentially what other people are going through. And so, not to say that leaders never had these issues before, but I think more of them have now experienced them.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's experience them and realize that like you're also human. Because I think the biggest part of us is always that I think we've acknowledged now that we're no longer superheroes, and that rest is actually kind of is your superpower, and as opposed to like work. Right? It's getting that rest, and taking that time, because we're not robots, and we weren't built to be that way. So here's hoping for a much better and more positive future. Uh, and with that, my last question. Do you have a give and or an ask of the audience?
Yeah, I think it's just to, again, what same advice I gave my my 25-year-old self, which is just to take time to put other people first. And I think you'll find that you'll get you'll end up getting a lot of fulfillment, and it will feel like you're putting yourself first, but you'll actually be doing good for others as well. So that would be my give.
That's a good one. I like it. Well, Lon, it's been such a delight chatting with you. They're full of wonderful empathy and curiosity, and it's still a delight to hear from you all the way from Canada. And thank you so much for joining us in the podcast today. And we'll put your details in the show notes for folks to connect with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura. It's been fun.
Awesome. And that is our show.